Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Melissa. I am the owner and artist here at the Top Drawer RVA, and I'm also a Dixie Belle brand ambassador. And for today's little project, I picked up a little thrifted chest. This chest was under $20 to purchase, which means that I am going to get wild and crazy with a little bit of paint. Since this chest is a shiny style of wood that would require an extra step in my prep, I will be using Bonding Boss in white on the entire painted surface of the chest. Applying 2 even coats and waiting 24 hours before I paint will make sure that my paint will stick to this tiny little project. Since this chest is small in size, I tend to get a little wild with my pieces. I find that something inexpensive, like a little chest like this, something small, is a great way to practice some new skills. So for today's project, I will be using a paper that I have not used before. It's bright, it's bold, it's called Life from Bells and Whistles under the Dixie Belle paint line. Don't worry, this is a long format video. I'm going to show you the entire process of applying this paper to this small chest. To begin with, before we start to apply our paper, we're going to paint on a nice, even, neutral color. You can choose any one of the light colors, anything from a light brown to a cream color. This color today that I'm using is Mud Puddle. The next part of the video was filmed live on Dixie Belle paint page. Comments and questions cannot be seen. Well, hello Dixie Belle paint page. How are you today? It is Melissa from the Top Drawer RVA coming to you live because it is Wednesday and I'm live here every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to hang out and play with some paint. And I have a new project today. So welcome. If you're new joining me for the first time, welcome. To drop it in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from. If you are back because you always hang out with me on Wednesdays, thanks for coming back to join me. And I hope that we can find something fun for you to be entertained and watch today. So what are we going to do? We're going to actually put a decoupage, aka decoupage, depending on how you want to say it. We're going to put a decoupage paper on this tiny chest. And it's a paper that I've never used before. I've never used this one before. So Dixie Belle's been releasing brand new stuff all the time. It's like every time I turn around, there's new products coming out. So this was actually from, I believe, the last release. This is a decoupage paper called Life. This paper is large in size. It's 23.375 by 33.125. So that's in inches. But in centimeters, that's about 60 by 84 centimeters. And so we're gonna apply this paper onto this small chest today. And I thought I would show it to you and we could play with some stuff. So let's look at the paper first of all, shall we? So this paper called Life is very, very big. Very big. You can see how big it is. This is a thicker paper. This is rice paper. You can see the little fibers on the back of the paper. That means this paper is going to be easier to apply. I find that it's easier for me to apply paper when it's rice paper. Tissue paper is sometimes a little bit too delicate for me. And since decoupage is not like my forte, I need to do what I can. So I love some rice paper because it makes my job easy. So this paper to me is like a little bit industrial. It's got like industrial vibes. And I haven't seen that many people use it. And it's nice and bright. So I thought we could take this paper and adhere it to the front of this chest and the top of this chest. And if I can get it long enough to go all the way around the back of the chest, I don't think I can, but probably just the front and the lid, I would have put it on there and kind of like paint a dark industrial style little chest. Because I picked this little chest up at the Goodwill. I think it was around 14 bucks, super cheap. And when things are really cheap, I like to experiment and have some fun. So what are we gonna do first? Well, to begin with, you're gonna paint your surface a nice light color. I painted this chest first of all in Bonding Boss because the material of this chest is wood, but I don't know if you can see inside. Can you see that little shine coming in from the light? You can see it there. See that shine? It was like a shiny painted surface. It had flowers on it. I mean, it's cute, but it just wasn't me. So I painted Bonding Boss on here to make sure that any paint or anything I put on is going to stick. I like this part, and it's almost like a fake leather. So we're just going to work on the part that I've painted today. So the color that I put on over top of my Bonding Boss is called Cobblestone, which is a nice neutral color. And when I do decoupage paper, I like to pick either a lighter neutral or like an off-white, because when you put the paper on, it's going to become a little bit see-through. You're going to lose a little bit of the color if you don't have a nice light color underneath. Like if you put black under here, you're going to have a harder time making this paper look vibrant. So what am I going to do first? Well, first of all, I'm going to get out my scissors and we're going to cut off this little, ooh, I'll put the chest on my scissors. I'm going to cut off this little white lip. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Actually, it's funny, when I look at this paper now, there's actually sections in here that are like pink, which is surprising. I thought this was mostly black and orange, but I was wrong. There's a lot of pink in here. So we're gonna get this paper, cut off the edge, and I'm going to score it, which means rub it with my finger to be able to apply it to the front of this piece. So I'm gonna keep cutting. I know some people like to tear their edges, but here's the plan for this thing. You saw the edge of that chest has like a raised faux leather band, if that makes sense. And I'm really gonna go, like I said, like industrial dark, gothic maybe a little bit for this piece. So I wanna cut off the white so that I can sit this edge clean right up against the faux leather band. Then after I get the paper all on, what I think I'm gonna do is actually add some black paint to the edges. I'm gonna grunge it up and darken it up a little bit. It's a little too bright and cheery for me. I want a more scary vibe. I'm into the scary vibe lately. Did you guys see my scary chest? Remember last week we worked on aging up the front drawer of a tiny washstand and I was doing a dark circus theme? If you follow me on Instagram, which I hope you do, at the Top Drawer RVA, go over to Instagram and see the reel that I posted today. I just put up the final look on the dark circus washstand. And y'all, I might just break the internet today because it's freaking fabulous. It turned out so good. It's like my new favorite thing that I've painted in forever. So go check it out on Instagram, Dark Circus. So what am I gonna do about this little buckle right here? You see that little hinge? I thought about taking it off, and I mean, I probably still could. I've had a disaster happen where I've taken this off before and it's actually broken. Should we be brave and daring and just take it off, or should we just work around it? I'm gonna get my tools. Let me get my tools. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me go get it. I'm gonna try taking it off. See what we got here. Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe tools. Maybe no tools. All right, I'm coming back in and I'm bringing my little wheelie bin with me. I'm looking for my multi-tool. Do you guys know what a multi-tool is? A multi-tool is a really great tool that allows you to use it for multiple purposes. Kind of looks like this, but sharper. Is this the multi-tool? No, look how many spatulas I have over here. Everything that I am looking for, but not what I need. There it is. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, if you are near to a Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, get one of these multi-tools. Spatulas are fun, but if you see a multi-tool, you see that it has almost like a blade on here. You can really get this up and under things sometimes and get the strength behind it to remove veneer. If you're looking for tools for your painter's toolbox, this is a good one. I love my multi-tool. All right, second up, in order to try, it's gonna break, watch. It's gonna break just because I'm on camera. To try and get this thing off of the front, we're gonna need a hammer. Now, here's the deal about being a lady. Sometimes hammers are really heavy, right? Like this is like heavy. When you're getting in here and you're doing your work, this is heavy and hard to hold sometimes. They're like top heavy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a ton of strength. Do you know what this is? Besides looking like a cute hammer, it's actually a bottle opener, novelty gift. It's a bottle opener, look. So I actually use this tiny little fake hammer to do my work because look how small it is. Now you've learned something about me today. When in doubt, buy novelty tools to try and do your work. Okay, well let's see. Let's see if I can get my, I bet you I can't even after all of that work. I bet you I can't get it off. because it's like nailed in, and it's not really great quality metal. If you guys have seen these chests before, it's y'all, I'm leaving it. If I take it off and it breaks, I'm gonna be so sad, because I like the darkness, grunginess of it. So c'est la vie. Goodbye multi-tool. Goodbye multi-tool and hammer, faux little novelty hammer. We're gonna work around it today. So today you're gonna learn how to apply decoupage paper around a lock on a cabinet. Okay, so I'm gonna take this paper. I want this dark corner. See this kind of, there's like a car or something hiding up behind here. So I want this paper to line up. I think what I'm gonna have to do is actually put this paper on to the line here and then stop, because this chest isn't even when the lid opens and closes. It's actually off kilter a little bit. And if I put the paper straight up, I guess I could do it a little offline. Let's do it a little offline. When it dries, I'm going to be able to work around this edge and actually sand it off. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to score the edge where I want to cut it. So I want to take this paper and I want to come right up this line. I'm going to come right up, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because remember, once I actually finish getting this paper on here, I'm going to sand the edges. I don't sand my decoupage paper while it's still wet. I'm going to be using clear coat to apply it today. I don't do that, because if you try and sand your paper when it's still wet, what's going to happen is your paper is going to rip. So my plan is today to get it on here as much as I can with a little bit of an overhang and using my clear coat. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to sand off those edges. I will cut this bit though, because when I cut that little white line, I didn't cut it very straight. So let's try cutting it a little bit more on the straight and narrow. So who's watching today that's tried decoupage paper? Do you have a preference? Are you a decoupage rice paper kind of a girl? Are you a decoupage tissue paper kind of a girl? Or boy, if you're watching, I don't want to put a gender on you. Because if you're like me, you like the tissue paper sometimes, but I prefer the rice paper. Okay, so now we're ready. So now I'm going to look at here and realize that, okay, you're going to come up here, Melissa, and you're going to have to cut off this edge. Again, I'm going to cut that off when I'm sanding it. I'm going to put this paper down and I'm going to cut a line right here. I'm actually going to cut the line before I even begin, because what this line is going to do is allow me to have a little bit more room where the lock is. Because I'm not going to cut the paper on the lock until it's dry, but this is going to give me a little bit more wiggle room to maneuver the paper around the lock. So when I adhere my paper to the front of this piece, when I come up here like this is going to open up a little bit and give me a little bit more pull on the paper. All right, so now let's bring you in nice and close so that we can talk decoupage. All right. So Carrie says that the rice paper is easier to work with. I agree. It's just thicker. It's just easier for me. I don't know. I like easy. Why make it more difficult on yourself than you have to? So what do you do first when you do decoupage paper? You're going to need a medium, right? You're going to need a medium to put your paper onto your piece. This is actually clear coat in satin. Now here's the deal. I know it looks white. It's not white. It's clear. I'm going to liberally, that means a lot, give it a lot, liberally apply my clear coat. And it's okay if I get it on the metal, remember, because it's going to dry clear. So once you get on your paper to the piece, the clear disappears and your paper is left on there. I'm going to get it to here and then I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm not going to put the medium up here yet. I'm going to work on this front piece. Now the next part of your little decoupage journey is to grab your water bottle. Why do I use this? Anybody know why I apply this to the back of my paper? I'm going to gently mist the back of my paper, because this paper, when it's wet, not soaking wet, okay, just like a little liberal spray, just a little spray over top. This paper wet is going to stretch a little bit better. So I'm just going to gently lay it up there. Remember, the top doesn't have any medium on there. It doesn't really matter what I do. And I'm going to make sure that I kind of start in the center to get this lined up. I did like the edge on the bottom, so I am going to line that up first. Once I line up my bottom edge, I can start to push my paper down. And here's my fancy tool. This is the fanciest tool that you can buy for decoupage paper. I'm kidding. It's saran wrap. You don't need any fancy tools. You just need a ball of moving wrapping paper or saran wrap paper. This is going to help you smooth your paper onto your piece. Okay? So now I'm going to start from the bottom and smooth my paper out. Smoothing, smoothing. I'm really just working on the biggest, flattest surface. It doesn't really matter about the edges right now, right? Because the edges are going to be sanded off. I'm going to grab my paper and use this crazy fancy tool to push the wrinkles out. Now I only have to push up to here because that's as far as my paper is going to have to go. If you see a big wrinkle and you can't push it out with your plastic wrap, you can just pick up your paper and move it along. Pick up your paper, move it along. Oh, this paper's hard to grab. I should probably cut it, to be honest with you. Using such a large piece makes it more difficult. I think what I'm going to do is stop right here, score my paper. Don't do as I do, okay? Because technically I should have cut this and scored it first. I'm going to cut this while it's a little damp, and that's like a scary thing to do, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. Because damp paper rips a little bit easier, doesn't it? Just be quiet and just cut it when it's damp. Your best bet would be to cut this when it's dry, people. It makes your life a lot easier, and you take the chance of ripping it when it's wet. So, dun dun dun, we did it. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my paper because I really want to work around this lock. Remember, there's this little metal lock. I can, when this is dry, take my knife very easily and cut with my knife around this surface. I just want to really get this paper up here and flat. If you're tuning in late and you didn't see this paper, this is from the last release from Dixie Belle called Life. And I feel like I'm going to need a little bit more medium up here. It is a brightly colored industrial style paper that I have never used before. And to be honest, I don't think I've seen a lot of people use this one. So we're going to get this paper on. I'm going to feel where that little edge is. I still have a little bit more room. Let's cut this paper where this little knobby bit of the lock is so that I can get around the edge. This is actually, I'm glad that, you know what? I'm glad that the lock didn't come off because I'm able to teach you how to apply your paper over top of something like this. Because if you didn't know how, you might be questioning how, and now I've taught you. Real problems, right? Real people problems. So stretching that damp paper up and out using my plastic wrap to adhere, and knowing, yes, there is an edge here, okay? There is a cut where my box will have to open, but I don't want to cut it now. I want to cut it when that decoupage medium, which is my clear coat, dries. Same thing goes for this edge. I want to wait till this paper is dry, and I'm going to take my knife and use my finger as a guide to come in and cut when it's dry. So this right now has no wrinkles. You can see the beautiful kind of industrial style. I don't know what that is. It looks like a motorcycle. Motorcycle? And then there's some words down here. And now we're going to work on the top. So let's see if I can bring you in and you can see the top piece as well. Okay, so I'm going to stand up. I'm going to make my life easier. Do I want to continue the paper up on the edge? I think I do. Okay, so let's go back in with our decoupage medium, which is my clear coat in satin. I'm going to go right there by the edge, and I'm going to go over the top of this entire trunk, spreading out my clear coat, which yes looks milky. It's clear. It'll dry clear, I promise. To to the entire surface. I don't care if it gets on my edges of my fake leather because it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to do this. First things first, I'm going to take my paper and kind of fold it over the edge. And I might even do a little bit of an overlap. Let me put my paper down. I just want to cut this thing. Sometimes when you bend paper, it gives you less room to maneuver it around corners. But if you cut the edge a little bit, it just gives it a tiny bit more leeway to be bent. Okay, so now that that's there and that's there, I'm actually going to bring the next paper over top of this edge. So let's get it down. Why aren't you going down, little corner? Where's my medium? Let's just give it a little bash. It'll stay down if I bash it. I'm going to cut this one too, just so I can get that paper to lay as flat as possible. Okay, now I already sprayed this, but I'm going to spray it again with my water. If you know where I put my water. Oh, it's behind me. Okay, we're going to spray the back of the paper. Spraying the back of the paper just allows it to be a little bit more stretchy. Now, do I want to continue the exact same pattern? I think so. So what I'm going to do is actually bring my paper and line up that little L. There's an L here. So we're going to take that L and we're going to line that up first. Once I line up my L, I'm going to be able to pick my paper up and stretch it over the surface. So I'm going to hold it here where my L lines up, get it flat in the middle, and use my middle as my guide. I've got my paper, which is my handy dandy, it's actually moving wrap for my, when I actually take my furniture to be delivered, I wrap it all up. Remember, I'm not cutting my edges yet until it's 100% completely dry. And I'm just gently, because you don't want to remove the pigment from the paper, gently pushing the paper down until there are no wrinkles. No wrinkles. I wonder if I can turn it so you can see the opposite side. I'm actually working on top of another project. So this project is sitting on top of another project, multitasking. I have a cedar chest under here. And if I turn this chest the wrong way, what'll happen is I will, number one, move my moving cloth and could possibly ruin the cedar chest that's underneath that I spent an hour sanding the top yesterday. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave it this way, and we're just going to pretend that you can see this part as I push it down back flat. So using the saran wrap or plastic wrap is going to allow you to push out the wrinkles, get a wrinkle-free surface, and really get it nice and flat. I don't want to put the clear coat on top until the first coat has dried, because if I start messing around and pushing wet on wet before it has a chance to kind of harden up, what's going to happen is you're going to remove the pigment. You could possibly take away some of the pigment that's on the paper, and you don't want to do that. So right now I have the bottom part done, the top part done. I don't have enough of the paper to do the sides, but I thought we could talk a little bit about how I'm going to paint the sides in today, because I still want the sides to match. So the next step will be let this dry. Once this is dry, I can take my sharp knife and I can come in, cut the edges, cut around the lock, and then reapply my clear coat so that I get a nice clear coat on the edge, a nice clear coat, a nice finish on top of this. I'll also then be cutting the middle. Once again, I don't like to cut this when it's damp. I don't want to tear the paper. So waiting until it's dry, patience people, patience, which I usually don't have a lot of, it's going to be a little while. So we're going to wait for that to get dry. Let's talk about what we're going to do on the sides while this gets dry. Dun, dun, dun. So I thought that I could go like caviar and possibly some of that red. Let me pull up a piece of the edge so that you can still see what color we're working with today. I don't think I want to do pink, but I might cut out some of these paper and rip a little bit just to get like a, should I add piece on here and kind of like rip an edge, kind of oblong, so that we can still see paper, but I'm going to paint in? What do we think of that idea? Should we try? Should we just rip some, see what happens? I don't want it all on there, but I wouldn't mind ripping some of this paper to create kind of like a border that I can then paint in and almost like peaks of paper. What do we think? Where's my Patty? Is she watching today? You like that idea too? It's just that this is the only scrap that I'm gonna have left, minus this small piece on the back. I could cut this part, but again, it's still pretty wet. I don't want to mess around with the paper when it's wet, right? Because even though this is excess and I'm gonna be sanding it, it's just so much more of a delicate creature when it's damp. I love that red. Let's rip some edges. Let's get crazy. Let's start ripping some up. So I like this red, but I also like this writing. You know what I don't like? Pink. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so see this edge, and see this? Let's start to rip it up and see what happens to get an uneven surface. Let's get creative around here. Painting isn't boring. Painting is fun. So why not have some fun? Look at that. That'll be nice. Let's do that. Okay, I'm gonna score this. I'm literally making this up as I go along. I'm gonna cut this bottom piece. Now, let's pretend that this is gonna go here. Did I bring yellow? I brought yellow. I brought maybe not enough red. This is Muscadine Wine. This is more barn red, isn't it? But I also bought black, and I can mix my Muscadine Wine and a little bit of the yellow together to get more of a brighter color on a paint-in. Unless I have barn red sitting somewhere close, which is not a color I use very often. All right, so let's get back to it. Let's stick this paper on the side so that we can then paint it in and get like a jagged edge. And yes, I painted the hardware. Why? Because the inside of this hardware has these like weird metal clamps that are literally impossible to get off. So I'm not gonna fight with, I'll paint them and then I'll just paint them black and you won't even see them. It'll be like magic. You know, we can get crafty in here. Okay, I want the bottom to line up, right? We need to go over further because I don't want to see that white line. That's better. Not perfect though. That's better. Again, white line, no ma'am, no white line for me. White line hidden. Okay, where's my saran wrap? So now I'm just gonna take my paper wrap and I'm gonna push my paper down. Once again, waiting for it to get dry before I sand it back. Ooh, do you think I'll have enough to do like completely all the way around? Probably not. I shouldn't get excited about these things before I have a thought process figured out. Only have 2 more sheets. Let's put another piece over here on this side. Should we just use the opposite side of this paper? I hear my dog coming in. I like that yellow. I like the yellow more than I like the pink. I like the red too. Let's do a little bit of red on this side too. Yes? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna rip it. I'm gonna save all these ripped up parts because I might put them on the other side and then the bottom too. I hear my puppy coming in. Okay, so now we've ripped up another edge. I like that. I like it. I like it. As long as the white edge isn't on there, we can do that. Okay, let's take our medium. And listen, I know some of you are watching me right now saying, she's lost her mind. Does she know what she's doing? Most of the time I do know what I'm doing. But guess what? There's also something to be said for flying by the seat of your pants. And sometimes my best work happens when I fly by the seat of my pants. You? Does that happen to you? I literally have sometimes the best outcome when I just go with the flow and figure it out as I go along. Now listen, there's going to be a little bit extra material here. I'm going to fold it a bit around that bottom corner because if I pull it real tight and there's a lip here, because this is going to have to cut, right? If I pulled that real tight, there's going to be a big pocket of air. And what'll happen is when it dries and you cut the pocket of air, you're going to be short some material, and you don't want to be short some material. You want to have it cover. So by pushing it in so it's around the lip, it's going to go up and over. And then once again, when this gets dry, I will be able to sand it off. So let's see if I can turn this chest around. It's weirdly heavy, this chest. Did you see my thrifted videos from this week where I showed you where I bought this chest? Brought it home and did a video. It was a little silly, but I had a lot of fun. I did a couple thrifting videos this week. Okay, so now we have the same thing on the other side. I'm going to try and rip it. Maybe I should go top to bottom this time instead of side to side, or should I keep it the same? Decisions. How much paper do I have left? This is what I have. This is what I have left to work with. So one side is going to be definitely thicker than the other, and I am going to have to use the pink even though I'm not the biggest fan. So we will try to work around this and maybe put this part here. Yes. It's getting skinny at the top. I might have to rip it down and pull it over a little bit further. Okay, get out my scissors. Stella, get out of here, honey. Why are you in here? Okay. This piece could go here, like this. Yes, yes. We're going to do that. I'm going to put my clear coat down. Spray the back of my tiny scrap piece of paper. You know what would be wonderful if I had some would you bend gears, but I'm pretty sure I've used all of my would you bend gears up. I don't think I have any left. If you're wondering what a would you bend gear is, they're this really great little tool that you can use to accent your steampunk-ish pieces, because that's what this piece is going to go, like industrial steampunk for me, I feel. So where's my scissors? So using would you bend on top of this would be a lot of fun, but I'm pretty sure I don't have any left. So I'm going to have to go with the flow. I kind of want to put this one up here. I want as much of that yellow on here as possible. Let's take out my plastic wrap and smooth this sucker out. Once again, monitoring this little section to make sure you don't have too much of an overlay. Why am I so afraid of the pink on this piece? I just feel like pink is not the vibe. It's just not the vibe for me. So let's do it this way and rip the pink out. If you're tuning in late and you're wondering which paper it is that I'm using, this is called Life. It's one of the papers from the last release, I believe, from Dixie Belle. And again, it's one of the papers I haven't used yet. So I'm gonna have to be aware of, see this big gap? Remember, this is an off-kilter lid a little bit, probably why somebody gave it away to the Goodwill, because they were tired of the off-kilter door. I wanna go over the edge a little bit so that when I sand it, I'm gonna have enough room. Let's push out my paper and monitor this lip. I'm gonna push my paper in a little bit, right? Because I wanna have enough paper to cover the lip. Again, if I pulled this straight across and left a big gap of air behind, what's gonna happen is when you cut it, it will leave a shortage of material. So just be aware that when you're working with an off-kilter lip, and when I talk about that, coming close so I can see. So see, this little lip is not even. If I were to pull that straight where it just sat over top of the edge and I cut it, I would be short. So by pushing it in, I'm just giving myself that extra little bit of material to play with when I cut it, and I'm not gonna have to fight with it. Oh, how are we doing? Hanging in? You good? You hanging in? I might have enough, y'all, to keep adding a tiny little bits of scraps on the bottom even. Just coming up. Should I keep, why would my dog come in here and cry at me? You know what it is? It's that she was waiting for the kid to come home. The kiddo was getting dropped off. Summer school holiday started here very recently, like yesterday recently. So my daughter is already in and out and all over the place. I'm gonna spray the back of this little piece of water, even though I don't have to. It's just a very small amount. I kind of don't want that straight edge. Let's rip this edge too. I don't want a straight edge of decoupage paper in the middle of my piece, because when I'm painting it in, it's gonna make it difficult to blend. And I won't color match this perfectly either. I'm gonna do more black because I really wanna black out the edges. That's nice. What about a little bit more up here? Just a bit? What do we think? We've got 3 pieces of paper left. I could probably use this right there. Might be overkill. Might be overkill. Let's go back to the other side. I waited for the paper to dry fully, for that satin clear coat to dry, and then cut open the paper around the edges and remove the paper from around the lock. I then used multiple colors from the Dixie Belle Chalk Mineral Paint line to fill in the blanks. This paint is water-based, so it's really easy to kind of ombre blend together. I used my French tip and a small artisan brush to create a fill-in for where there was no paper. I wanted a deep, dark, industrial vibe to this piece, so I did add a lot of black caviar around the edges to kind of smoke it out, as well as drip it down from the hinges. I continued the process on both sides, as well as the back part of the chest. You can see me here laying down the colors to really pull them together to create a fill-in for where there was no paper. After I was done painting in all of the paper and finishing the look on the piece, I came in with a little bit of black wax. The black wax is also water soluble, so it's really easy to blend in around the edges. And then I sealed the entire chest with Dixie Belle's clear coat in satin. It's always advised to add that extra little bit of protection using a satin clear coat over top of your decoupage paper. And then this little chest was finished. I actually really love how it turned out. The color palette is not something that I normally would be using, but I find that when I use something that I'm not used to, it turns out better than I expect. I staged this cute little chest with candles and some copper accents, as well as some oversized keys to really kind of give it that steampunk industrial vibe. So make sure when you're using any decoupage paper that you try the saran wrap or plastic wrap method. I think you'll find that it really smooths out the paper well without any wrinkles, without any problems with any of the color moving off of the paper. It's just a really great tip to applying some decoupage paper. It's always fun to try new things on a small chest or a small item from the thrift store that doesn't cost a lot of money. Since this chest was, I think, around $14 when I purchased it, it's fun to play with and practice on and create new looks that you might not have tried before. And who knows, if you absolutely love it and the way that it turned out, you can try this approach on a bigger piece of furniture like a dresser or a hutch. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys again next week. I am live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Dixie Belle Paint page on Facebook.